We've got it all covered, as you would expect. And what a treat this afternoon. We are in the company of football royalty. That is still, Arsene, one of my favourite pictures of you standing at Old Trafford with your arms out and saying, well, where do you want me to go? You were being a little provocative, weren't you? You knew exactly where to go.
I knew, yes.
And by the way, if you're wondering where Andy is, he's over here in the screen, as you can see, back in the UK, locked down and awaiting surgery on a replacement knee after 6 operations during the course of his career. It's time, Andy, is it not?
Oh, it's time, Richard. I mean, I now know my place in life in football when I'm not with you and you announce we were about to meet footballing royalty, and I thought, wow, I've gone up in the world. And then, of course, is the man who's, of course, football royalty, and I'm just another one.
Do you miss the cut and thrust of it? Do you miss those days at Old Trafford?
The intensity.
Yeah.
You suffer more and you're happier as well. So you miss both. You miss especially the happiness when you see happy pictures, of course. But on the other hand, you know, I can contribute in a different way to football, and there's a huge gap now in world football between Europe and the rest of the world. And I'm on a program to give a chance to everybody who wants to play football. And at the moment, that's a huge task because structured football at youth level is missing in many, many countries. And we are on a program who wants to develop that.
That's an interesting point you make. How is it possible to do that, particularly when you're dealing with countries that often young men struggle, women too, struggle to get a football strip together?
Look, we have 211 countries affiliated to FIFA, and 205 signed for an inquiry of their needs. And what we found out, things that are common, for example, is that the world ranking is linked with the number of educated coaches in the country and with the structured competitions.
Is it really?
And there are things that are specific to some countries because of the size of the country, because of the lack of money, and as well because the money is not always used to build football pitches at the right place, and as well because we have to educate people who educate the coaches as well. You know, there's so much to do. So we create a complete online program. After the report we have, I sent 2 people in every single country to make a report of what are the needs in every country, and then we try to supply the needs.
How do we service those needs when in a COVID era that no one foresaw, even the top end of the game is struggling, not least, for instance, the 2 big clubs in Spain, Real Madrid and Barcelona?
Well, you could say, Richard, that basically the turnover of football in the world in 1 year was approximately 45 billion. Football, we lose between 15 and 20 billion. That means when you look at the wages maybe cover 60 to 80% of this turnover, you know. So who can solve the problem is only the players.
In what respect? How?
In respect, or by accepting to diminish their wages, or by at least deferring the wages, because we are not sure today that we'll play a World Cup with full capacity, you know, in 2022. And I think a cautious plan would be today to say that the World Cup could be played with 50% of a capacity in each stadium, because we are not have enough distance to be sure that vaccination will be a complete solution. With the variant that we see now, we have to accept that maybe there is no other solution than reducing the income or the wages for the players.
So when you say diminish the wages, are you saying, is that another phrase for salary cap?
I would say that the variable of the wages has to be much bigger, and the fixed income has to be much shorter. And one of the variable income of the players has to be linked with the capacity of a stadium, certainly. And for example, if you earned before 100, 90 were fixed, and 10% for the players' wages were on bonuses. We have to think maybe further and think about solutions where 50 is fixed and 50 linked to variables.
That sounds to me like a bigger job than getting the smaller countries into a position whereby they can compete with Europe. That's a massive ask. Where do you start?
Where you start is by being realistic, and I would say despite the financial problems, it doesn't stop you from educating young players and improve the level of the players. You know, we just had here the Club World Cup. We had Palmeiras who won South American Libertadores. They, in 180 minutes, a country like Brazil didn't score one goal chance. It didn't create one goal chance. So that means the level, the difference of level of football between Europe and the rest of the world has widened. And we have to find solutions to educate better children. The financial problem is linked with COVID. We know that. How long will that take? I don't know. But the quality of education, the quality of educating the coaches is just linked with the fact, do we want to do it or not?
I can't share with you the most popularly asked question of me down the years. Andy probably could guess. The second most popular, and we've talked about this a lot. Has the bubble burst? So many times since 1992 when we started out on a 3-year cycle, we've speculated that we'd reach maximum. Has that happened? In
normal conditions, no.
These aren't normal conditions.
In actual conditions, yes, of course, because we are. Everybody wants to reduce. The sponsorship suffers. The televisions suffer a bit less, but they depend as well on the sponsors. So they depend on the global economical health situation, you know. So overall, at the moment, we have to think for the future by reducing the expenses.
And do you accept that income as far as TV rights are concerned, that has also changed, that going forward there will not be the bonanza that there once was?
That's for sure, especially for the domestic rights. You know that better than I do, certainly.
Yes, but if I say it, it's not going to make an impact. If you do, it will.
Sorry? You had enough impact balls, you know.
So you think the heady days of the £1 billion TV deals are over?
We are at the maximum with the domestic rights. That cannot go up. The international rights will depend on the big gaffer, you know, and will they come in or not? I don't know. But certainly, what is for sure is that football games watched by the younger generations, you know. I speak about people who are today 10 years old, 15 years old. They will not anymore sit in front, certainly, of a television and watch a game for 90 minutes. They watch it in flashes, you know, just nearly live, but they watch the goals, the interesting situations. That means we have as well, maybe inside the game, to think how can we make the game quicker, more interesting, and more spectacular.
Well, get rid of VAR would be a start, wouldn't it?
I'm not convinced, Richard, but make it VAR simple. That is true. You know, we had another example of we have seen at the Club World Cup in the final where one goal was cancelled.
Yes.
And after one goal was given, and after changed again the situation. So emotionally, yes, we have some progress to make. We still make better decisions on a consistent level.
We haven't got the time for Andy and I to argue to the contrary in that respect. And I think
Andy and you are, anyway, I don't try to convince you at all.
Well, you won't, because neither of us is a fan. And I think that over this period, from where we started to this point, would
But
be
look,
more right
look,
than wrong.
Andy, look in what shape he is. He has a bad knee because he was tackled without VAR. With VAR would be in a much better situation.
VAR doesn't stop that. Anyway, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. Are you any closer?
Richard, the only reason I've got a bad knee is not because of no VAR. It's because I was too slow to get out the way.
Are you any closer
Or too keen to go in the tackle.
to getting to the place that you'd promised us, whereby you'll be able to make offside decisions technically?
Automated, yes. But
How close are we?
we are at the Club World Cup. We already experimented here during the games. A red light will go on. The only thing we have to decide is, does it go to the VAR first or directly to the linesman? Knowing that, for example, the goal that has been cancelled by Lewandowski, the red light would go on because would not go on because the guy who scored the goal was not offside. After still will be the interpretation of the guy who interfered or not with the goal. And in this case, it was yes.
So, could we start next season with that technology?
We would not be ready for next season. I think we will start. The first time you will see that will be at the World Cup in Qatar.
Oh, really? That's an interesting development. And how close are you to persuading people that instead of an eyelash or a toenail being offside, if players are virtually level, that you can allow the toenail and the eyelash to be level with the defender and the whole of the rest of the body is onside? So you've turned offside onto its head, in other words.
We make an experiment in China with the League 2 and 3 professional leagues in March until November, and we'll have over 100 games with a rule where we experiment that if any part of the body you can score with is on the same line when the defender, you're not offside, you know, and we'll see that should give a bit much more space and time to the strikers.
And how close are you to persuading enough people to see that as also a positive change?
You know, football, I think if we come to a positive conclusion, we can persuade the IFAB to change the rule. But the process is slow. What is a disadvantage, certainly a little bit in the modern game, but as well an advantage on a longer distance because it keeps the stability in the rules. But overall, we have to see if it's efficient and if the game is more spectacular.
But it's coming.
It's coming. I made a consultation with defenders, strikers, coaches, and you will not be surprised. The striker said to me, it's a very good rule, and the defender said to me, it's a very bad rule.
I was going to say, you haven't yet spoken to Andy about it, have you? He may have a different view about that entirely. But on just back on the subject of finances, how close are we to a Super League? Because clubs have got to find other ways of generating income, have they not?
I think the project of a Super League is something serious that doesn't come out of blue like that, and that big clubs have sat together and threatened the UEFA to organize a Super League. UEFA responded by proposing to change the formula, of the Champions League, you know, by creating 4 more games. I don't know what will come out there. I personally don't like the solution that UEFA offers, with 36 clubs and one plays in one group plays against a number 10.
Yeah, it's a league where not everybody plays each other, isn't it?
Exactly.
And a formula that sees the big clubs qualify, really.
Inside football, we have to think the fans are the most important after the players, and that one rule we have to be guided by is let's keep it simple and as well with something at stake, you know. And I believe that we are, as you said before, inside the game, the clubs want always more money. Outside the game, the fans want more games with a meaning, you know.
Yes, of course.
And if the response to create more money is by organizing games without any meaning, I don't think we are on the right way.
So is that another way of saying that although Super League has been threatened by a number of clubs, it really doesn't have a conclusion? It won't happen?
It won't happen because...
Categorically?
It might happen in 5 years. Imminently, it will not happen. Until 24, it is blocked. After 24, in March, they will decide, the UEFA will decide with the clubs, with ECA, if the new formula is accepted or not.
If you don't like that formula, do you have an alternative? What's the alternative?
The alternative is to keep the Champions League as it is, or organize it the way it has been organized during the COVID, you know, that direct knockout. People want to see games. When you look at the audiences of the televisions, people don't watch games anymore with nothing at stake. They want or you through or you out, you know. And inside football, we want more games who guarantees income. And the future is certainly to find a compromise between what the fans want and enough financial security for what the clubs need. Because anyway, you put 100 million more into the game, 90% will go for wages.
Well, yes. Yes, it will. But to take this conversation then full circle, how about a world league that would include the clubs that you spoke about when we started talking, who are way off the pace of the European clubs? Would that, first of all, generate money, and secondly, competition?
Yes, it would, but I think always we have first to think, will it make football better, and not will it generate more money?
You see, that matters to you, Arsene, and I think an increasingly small number of people. Owners of big clubs these days are not interested in are we making football better. They're simply interested in how much money can we make from football. And that surely is your biggest battle.
That's where I agree with you. But I would say that's why we have to take care of the national teams. For example, if more national teams have access to big competitions, they will be ready to organize their game inside the country to do something for their game. The club football, they care more about just their club, you know. So we have to combine the evolution in the national teams. For me, is more important for the development of a game than inside the clubs. Because the clubs, when you take the clubs today in Europe, all the best players from the world come to Europe, go to England, basically, if you make it simple. But if tomorrow Costa Rica or Zimbabwe can go to the World Cup, they might think we don't want to be ridiculous, we have to organize our game.
Is Brexit going to work to the advantage of Premier League and Championship clubs?
What?
Or disadvantage? Brexit, the fact that
Brexit,
there won't be the same movement through Europe into and out of England.
What you have to know is that the rest of Europe has one dream, is to destroy the superiority of the Premier League, you know. And when you speak to me about the Super League, it is basically that target behind. We wanted always at Arsene to be in these discussions because we knew that the Premier League was the target and we wanted to know what happens in there, you know. But Brexit will be a disadvantage for English clubs and will make things more difficult. Brexit could be the start of slowly evolution towards less dominance from England.
Do you think so? So in short, Brexit will have an adverse effect on the Premier League?
Yes. Look, I give you just one example.
In what respect? The coaches are not able to come, or players, or both?
Both. Coaches, I'm less worried because England now educates well their coaches, and you have a young generation of coaches who has certainly the level to coach. I think what is more concerning with the new rules, for example, N'Golo Kante, who came to Leicester for nothing basically, would not be capable to come in, and Leicester would not win the championship.
Nor Solskjaer, nor Bielsa as a coach.
So that's what I mean by that.
Would Arsene Wenger have been able to join us from Japan?
No, certainly not. That might have been a good solution.
or we might not have been sitting here today. Because that's quite. So you wouldn't have made it then. You would not have managed Arsenal in these circumstances.
No.
Wow. And of course, Arsenal these days can't have a conversation about Super League because they're no longer in even the top half of the table, Andy. So it's only the big clubs, of course, that are able to join those conversations.
Unfortunately. But I must say that, one of COVID has, of course, been a blow not only to us, but to many clubs. For example, you know that well, that I looked a little bit at the stats. A club like Liverpool, before COVID, made 2.7 points at home, and since COVID, without fans, they made 1.7 points, basically 1 point less. So it shows as well that the importance of the fans is huge in some places more than in others. But one of the positive points is that for the first time this year, we have seen less managers sacked by their clubs. And the main reason is because you had no fans in the stadium, because some big clubs lost 3-4 games in a row at home. With a full stadium, you don't survive, And the only positive thing of the COVID, it gave some managers more time to get over disappointments.
What else do you do when you're sitting at home, apart from look through these piles and piles of statistics and watch football matches?
No, I watch
anything
football
else
matches.
That you do?
I watch football matches first. I know I try to sometimes to understand what's going on. It's not always in the numbers. It's more in emotional impression, the vibes you get out from the teams,
If you can have the effect in your current job that you once had with the cut and thrust of being a coach, a manager, would that give you as much, maybe more satisfaction? The impact you can have now?
Yes, I think overall in life you have, when you coach, you go for the immediate glory, but you go as well, I think with the distance now when I look what I did, you have immediate glory when you win titles and everybody says you're great, or what you leave behind is the value that you generate, by the quality of your comments, by how you make football popular, or by what you leave behind when you're manager. And in fact, when I look back, I think it's more important, the value that you generate is more important than the immediate glory.
We've got some football to talk about as well. Dramatically changing subject. Are Liverpool still in the title race, or
No.
are they too far? They're not.
No, I don't think so, because Man City is 10 points ahead, has one game in hand. They look to be on the run, and I don't think with 14 games to go, you can catch 13 points with a top team. I've never seen it, 13 points. If it was 8 to 9, yes. If Man City wins the game in hand, 13 points is impossible.
What were you when you put that 13-game run together and won at Old Trafford? I can't remember the gap. What was
it?
The
It was
gap?
8 points.
8. So eight's about maximum.
8 is a maximum with 10 games to go, 11 games to go, And we got the luck that year that Roy Keane was injured. He was a kind of guy who was he had a huge impact in the team. So, and we won at Old Trafford.
Yes, I remember very well you winning at Old Trafford. So does Andy remember you winning at Old Trafford. It was an extraordinary one. Are Liverpool competitors? Sorry, Andy. Teams. I know you've done your homework, so at this point I should be quiet.
No, I mean, listen, Liverpool will be as competitive. I agree with Arsene. I think the points difference, Richard, is too much even for Liverpool to make up. And that would be a Liverpool side who would be playing extremely well, and we don't quite have that right now. But yeah, well, Brendan's had a few problems. But the good news is Vardy's back in at the Premier League start. Albrighton comes in, Ndidi comes in, and Daniel Armity comes in for an unlucky James Justin, one of the players of the season, I think, so far. So he's had to make a few changes, probably a change of system, maybe a back three we'll see today. And I think for Jurgen Klopp, it's pretty much as you were. Thiago drops to the bench and James Milner comes in. One or two might be surprised about that. And Ozan Kabak from the Bundesliga gets a debut. So those are the changes, only 2 from Liverpool, 4 for Leicester City.
Are Leicester City in the title race, Arsene?
I think Leicester City is a very good team, but
This is a diplomatic answer.
Honestly, I don't know. I would say I admire what Brendan Rodgers is doing. They are a team who try to play, you know, but they look to me a bit short in top overall quality to dictate the game against big teams.
When you look through the list of Premier League coaches, is Rodgers as close to what you were and the things that you believe in, trying to produce football as an art form?
Yes, he has that desire, and I would say yes, of course. He has always a positive attitude towards the game, and you have to respect that. They try to give quality in that team play. I think his main players are maybe a fraction young to dictate the big games and to come back in the chance, especially against a team like City, who has sorted out their problems, defensive problems, you know. So I don't think that City is beatable now.